Ladies and gentlemen, this is about solving absolute value inequalities. So first we need to cover the basics. The first thing you have to watch for when you have an absolute value inequality is that you have to be sure you isolate that absolute value expression by itself on the left side of the inequality. The next thing that you need to do is for less than problems, you need to follow the method that is the positive and negative sandwich. So when we have the absolute value isolated on the left side, then we simply sandwich it in between the value we started with and the opposite of that value. So typically it will be the pattern negative n is less than x is less than n. These values, recall, can be either less than or equal to. So if this had another line underneath it, then it would indicate less than or equal to, and we would still follow this less than method. For the greater than method, we follow a different procedure. So when the absolute value of x is greater than n, then we split it into two separate expressions. We rewrite the expression as it appeared originally, just removing the absolute value signs. And then we write it again, removing the absolute value signs, but flipping the inequality sign from greater than to less than and adding a negative sign onto the answer. The last thing that we have to remember is that the original rule that we had about solving inequality still holds when there's an absolute value in the inequality. So that means that if we happen to divide or multiply by a negative number, it's still important to change the direction of the inequality sign. All right, so here's our first example. So this is a less than example. So this is 3 times the absolute value of x plus 6 is less than 90. So if you want to stop the video for a second and work this out, and then you can check it in a second and see if you got it right. Okay, I hope you started this one by dividing both sides of this inequality by 3. Doing that eliminates the 3 from the left side, and 90 divided by 3 is 30. Now we're ready to start applying the less than example rules. So with a less than, we need to make that positive and negative sandwich. So we follow this pattern. So what we end up with is negative 30 is less than x plus 6 is less than 30. The next step will be to subtract 6 from all 3 parts of this linear inequality. So when I subtract 6 from negative 30, I get negative 6. When I subtract 6 from this expression, then I'm just left with x. When I subtract 6 from 30, I get positive 24. So that's the final answer for this less than example. All right, so here's our solution. If we graph the point negative 36 and we graph the point positive 24, then our solution is every point between positive 24 and negative 36. You see open circles at negative 36 and 24 because those are the edges of our solutions, but they are not included in our solutions. All right, so the next problem we're going to do, the next example we're going to do is a greater than example. So in this example, we have the absolute value of x plus 4 minus 6 is greater than or equal to 16. Now remember, in greater than examples, this could be greater than or equal to, as we have here. Go ahead and stop the video and try this one, and then come back and see if you did it correctly. So hopefully you started this one by isolating the x plus 4 inequality by adding 6 to both sides. So when we added 6 to the left side, then we were left with simply the inequality. But when we added 6 to the right side, we had 22. Next, we have to apply the greater than rules. So we have to establish two separate equations. So We'll start by saying x plus 4 is greater than 22, so we're going to leave this pretty much the same, simply taking off the absolute value signs and replacing them with parentheses. Then on the other side, we have to establish that x plus 4 is less than or equal to negative 22. So we flip the inequality sign and we flip the sign on the value in the original expression. The next step then is going to be, is to subtract 4. So from here to here, we subtracted 4 from both sides. So we got an answer of x is greater than 18 for this one. Then over here, when we subtracted 4, we got an answer of x is greater than or equal to negative 26. Then as a solution, we have two parts to that solution. X is greater than or equal to 18, so that's shown here, or x is less than or equal to 26, and that's shown over here. Good luck with these. Come back to these simple examples if you get stuck on one that's a little bit more complicated. But generally, the ones I've just shown you are typical of the kinds you're going to be required to do for the basic evidences that we ask you to do in class.